Do you know about a game called Mania? It's an addicting puzzle game for the original Game Boy where you play as Muddy Mole, who goes on a quest to save his own family from the evil farmer Jinbei. I wanted to own Mania, but never got the chance to do so due to wanting other games instead. I briefly remember playing the game long ago, but that was a rental at a video game store that no longer exists today. Mania was never popular, and part of that could be blamed because it came out near the end of the original Game Boy's life cycle. Even Nintendo Power tried to promote the game when it was close to being released in their magazine, but that didn't seem to do any good at all. I had a friend who was a Game Boy enthusiast, who went by the name of Jesse. He would collect Game Boy games as a hobby. Most of the games that Jesse owned weren't even played by him at all because he would only want them for collection's sake. He was determined to own the entire Game Boy library, so I decided to check and see if he owned Mania. Luckily enough, he did. I went to ask if I could borrow the game, and he agreed since the game wasn't all that rare. One thing I noticed upon getting the game was that the sticker on the cartridge was almost completely white, except for the sprite of the old mole who was a character in the game. I figured the game was from another country because of this. It was common back then to have an alternative label for older games depending on the country they were produced in. The old mole was a character who helped Muddy Mole by placing various signs that gave the player hints to the game. He would also appear in places called rest areas where you would have a big heart ready that would restore your health, and this was useful when you were low on health from the enemies. He would sometimes act like a jerk, but he was helpful for the most part. I made it home and hooked up my SNES. I heard that playing the game on the Super Game Boy gave the game some color and a unique border related to the game. I inserted the cartridge into the Super Game Boy and hit the power key. The game began and things seemed normal except for the title screen. Jinbei and the old mole were absent. Now I haven't played the game for a while and even I knew things seemed a bit off. I came to the conclusion that this was probably because the differences between this version and the American release. I went to the menu only to see that there was one file instead of two. I chose to erase the previous file and start a new game. The opening began with Muddy Mole's family enjoying the outdoors. It was very much like the original introduction. Soon enough, Muddy Mole's wife began to panic and order the kids to go back down the hole because Jinbei was going to arrive or so, I thought. Instead, the old mole appeared. Muddy's wife blocked the hole, and the old man, not being pleased about this, got out a hammer and was about to whack the wife with it until the screen faded to black. Now, I was laughing my ass off at this point. I know this may come off as surprising to people who haven't played Mania, but see, in the original opening, Jinbei was supposed to show up instead of the old man, who would get out a hammer and knock the wife out of the way with it, so he could capture the mole children. I don't think you can get away with having a male character acting abusive towards females nowadays, especially in a kid's game. Now, what was really funny about this was that this was obviously a hacked version of the title, and that the people responsible for it were too lazy to animate the old mole hitting the wife with the hammer. It was an incredibly lazy job overall, but I will admit, however, that it was interesting to see that the old mole was going to be the main antagonist this time around. When the screen faded back in, Muddy Mole arrived and saw a note left by the hole. When he noticed his family was gone, he went to read the note. This is what it said. "I'm so lonely. Nobody visits this old mole anymore." What was interesting was that this was one of the things that the old mole would say upon talking to him in the later levels of the actual game. I was beginning to feel a little interested in the game because I thought the person who had hacked this game would add in new levels. Sadly, upon selecting the first stage, it looked to be the same level that was in the original title. You could only access the first level at the start of the game, but after beating that level, you could access all the stages except for the final level, which required you to clear all the other levels first. Now, Mania was an interesting puzzle game. It played in a third-person perspective, similar to the old Zelda titles. There were many different rooms, all of which required you to guide a steel ball to a door in order to break it down and make it to the next room. You could also bury underground, which you were required to do in order to make your way around the levels. You had to be very careful where you dig, because digging would leave a hole behind and you couldn't get the steel ball past any of the holes in the game unless you were on the hole itself and threw it from behind. It was really one of those more interesting puzzle games to exist. Now, I played the tutorial segment, guiding Muddy past the first few rooms. Everything at this point played just fine. There were still enemies that Muddy would have to deal with by throwing something at them, whether it be the steel ball, or a cabbage, or a barrel. I was wondering who would replace the old mill in the rest areas you would find after clearing enough of the puzzles. Sure enough, I played up to the room before the first rest area in the game, and this is where things began to get a little strange. I went to read all the signs in the room after clearing it. All of them were in the same place, in which, they gave hints to the player, but the last sign, I noticed the room was filled with holes. And it was probably a weird glitch, or else it was some kind of dick move that the hacker decided to leave in. I left and re-entered the room, and sure enough, the holes were gone. I then solved the puzzle and moved to the first rest area in the game, and I was interested to see how this area would change due to the old mole being the antagonist now. When I entered the room, it was empty. There wasn't even a wagon that contained a big heart. The only thing that stayed the same was the old mole's theme playing. This theme would play whenever you entered any of the rest areas, as he was normally presented in those rooms. If you talked to him, he would give you the big heart and sometimes offer advice. I left the room and continued to make my way through the levels. I went to read more of the signs, which only resulted in more holes appearing in that room. The holes even appeared in tiles that were impossible to dig through. I had to leave and enter the room again in order to continue. After the same incident kept occurring in various rooms, I decided to ignore the signs and try to finish the level. I made it up to the split pathway. I decided to head north and was surprised a little by what I saw. While most of the level was the same as the original game, the room that contained the bonus stage for the level was different. Different how, you may ask? Well, it was a big empty room except for the middle that had a lot of spikes completely surrounding a star in the middle. There seemed to be no way of reaching it, and it was impossible to dig through the spikes. A star would bring you to a bonus area where you would face off against Jinbei. The goal was to get all of the cabbages into the hole before time ran out, and it was a little frustrating. Jinbei was fast, and if he managed to hit you with his hoe, you would lose 5 seconds on the clock. You could stun him by throwing one of the cabbages at him. If you managed to beat Jinbei, you would get 20 points, which was needed to get 100% of that stage. After trying to reach the star in the middle a few times, I gave up and continued on. I made it past the next couple of rooms and was ready to go up against the first boss of the game, who was known as Kangaroon. I cleared the last door and entered the door leading to the boss. What happened was a letdown. Instead of facing the boss, I was taken to a stage clear screen. The game had skipped Kangaroon, and I was not happy about it because I actually enjoyed facing off against the bosses due to the catchy boss themes that would play. Now, after getting out of the stage clear screen, I saw that all the other levels had disappeared. Now, I was still restricted to level 1, and at this rate, I almost had enough of this terrible hack. I wanted to turn the game off, but I wanted to go back to level 1 to see if there were any new gimmicks that I hadn't even known about. I figured there was something else I had to do in order to open up the other levels of the game. I went to visit each room again, with all of them being the same except for the bonus room. When I entered that room, I noticed that all the spikes were now gone and I could actually access the star now. This is pretty strange. I guess I needed to clear the level first? I didn't hesitate and stepped on the star tile to be teleported. When I was teleported, it wasn't a bonus stage. It was another room that wasn't in the original game. I was taken to what appeared to be a cemetery. There were tiles in the room that weren't even in the original game. There were 9 tombstones in here that were lined up together. Behind the tombstones, the area was empty. I looked around, noticing that there was no actual exit to the room. The only way back was to step on the star tile that was also in here. The music playing was also new. It sounded like a depressing melody. It was like something horrible had happened in the game, and I was not aware of it yet. It didn't take long until I noticed that I could inspect the tombstones, and upon bumping into a tombstone, I noticed that it worked like reading a sign in the game. The first tombstone read, "Rest in peace, Albert Mole." I read the rest of the tombstones from left to right. The second one read, "Rest in peace, Rolf Mole." Third tombstone, "Rest in peace, Charlie Mole." Fourth tombstone, "Rest in peace, Wes Mole." Fifth tombstone, "Rest in peace, Tiffany Mole." Sixth tombstone, "Rest in peace, Garen Mole." Seventh tombstone, "Rest in peace, Abby Mole." Eighth tombstone, "Rest in peace, Scarlet Mole." I was beginning to feel a little disturbed as it felt like these tombstones weren't just placed here to interact with. I decided to check the final tombstone, and what it said was something I did not expect. Rest in peace, Jinbei. I was shocked at this. What kind of a sadistic person puts this in a game? I knew I could dig in the area, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to see what was under beneath those tombstones. I wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. I saw that the star tile was still there, so I stepped on it and got out of there as fast as I could. I realized that the old mole was probably responsible for all those deaths. What kind of a sick mind did he have? I don't know. When I left the cemetery, I noticed the theme for it was still playing. I wanted to confront the old mole for all the horrid things that he had done, but there was no way he was going to get away with what he did, let's be honest. Soon enough, I found him after entering the first rest area again. When I entered the room, I noticed that all the exits of the room were sealed off, and I was trapped in there with him. The music changed to the theme of the old mole. He was standing right by the fountain without the wagon that he would usually carry around. I went to go talk to him, and this is what he had to say. They're all gone. I got rid of them. They never paid me any visits. You never paid me any visits, you ungrateful rat. And now we're the only ones left. The conversation ends, and the old mole had gone insane. He claimed that he didn't play a big role in the original game, but you would see him in every single level in the game, so he had a much bigger role than any other helpful character I knew. Did he want a bigger role than what he had? Is this why he did it all? I went to go talk to him again. It's just you and me now. You're stuck here with me forever. I talked to him yet again after that, and all I got was the longest ellipses any game has ever offered. This time he didn't even say anything. So I went to bump into him one last time. Whew, you ungrateful mole. Just wait till I get my claws on you. While he was saying this, disturbing music began to play. The music felt like I was playing a game based off a horror movie. The old mole would also act this way in the original game if you talked to him too many times, but this time, I guess considering the circumstances, it was far more unsettling. The screen faded to black and there was no game over screen, it was just empty blackness. I heard the sound of my character squealing like he would if he had taken damage in the game. The horrifying music stopped playing, to my relief. 30 seconds later I was looking at a black screen. I heard crying from in the game. No, this was the crying of the old mole, who was now lonely. The crying at this point was non-stop and just looped endlessly. There was no way to progress past this point. I shut the game off, feeling like I had to show off what I found. Later on, I invited my other friend over and showed him the game I had experienced. I erased the previous file and played through it with him watching. Nothing changed at all, and the game ended the same way it did last time. Even he felt disturbed by whatever message the game was giving. I went to return the game to Jesse. It's going to take a while before I can pick up anything involving Mania again. I'll stick to other puzzle games for now. Well, I think that was the first Mania creepypasta that I have ever done. Honestly, I've never played the game before or have ever heard of it. Sometimes you learn about some new games from these, which is very nice. Regardless, I didn't expect a creepypasta from a game called Mania. And that too a standard puzzle game, but then again Godzilla NES served as one of the more fascinating creepypastas I've ever read, so anything's possible. Now, as far as cliches go, there were quite a few of them, and quite a few dirty ones which really served against the experience. And I guess the best way I can sum up those cliches is just by saying that it is a very similar creepypasta. Yeah, that's not bad. It handled the classic creepypasta formula popular. You know, you find a game, there's something weird attributed with it, and it just devolves from there. Now, over here, at least the reactions from our character was actually really well handled. You know, there wasn't any, oh, I saw this before in the game, or I didn't expect this, or something stupid like that, where obviously the reaction is, you know, one way, but the creepypasta deliberately goes the other way, and it just goes against us. Here, you know, it was handled well. Of course, it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it was handled better than those cliched masterpieces before it. But the thing is, I needed more. I get the game is hacked, but aside from a character change and a few tombstones, and I guess if you toss some skeletons in there, maybe it would be really scary, but we don't really get any more than just the basics. It kind of seems like some of the creepy-esque games I get sent and find somewhere on the internet, and even if that is the case, it's still relatively cool, because at the end of the day, that is what a creepypasta is supposed to be. It's just an internet campfire tale. And that would really suffice. But regardless, it's just, I don't get this whole sort of, the big
the meat of a creepypasta, so to speak. I don't really get that in here. It's just very samey, very cliched. And I get that it's trying to sort of take this game that ultimately isn't very creepy on its own and trying to make it really creepy. I get that, but at the end of the day, it's not really as well handled as I would have expected. In all honesty, it just needed a little more. I think if this was fleshed out way more, it could actually be a really interesting creepypasta. It could be something similar to, say, like Misfortune.gbc. Even though, of course, the premise for these two are, regardless, very different. I feel like I was getting some vibes out of that, maybe because of the similar platform and the visual style, but I just, if it was fleshed out, it would have been as great as something like that, so to speak. But it was nice, given what it had. For a puzzle game creepypasta with a source like that, great work. But ultimately, that is my thoughts on it. And as always, I do want to ask you what you think about this creepypasta. Let me know in the comments below. This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming. Please rate this creepypasta. Let me know what you would change about it in the comments below. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. Thank you for watching. This is me, Mudahar, and I am out.